In the program, and our today our chief guest is the Social Welfare Minister, and this Mr. Enamul Haque Mostafa, our Minister of the Social Welfare Ministry, and he is the chief guest of the program. He has come a little bit late, and that's why I just try to make both sides happy to to make the program more effectively, so that we are not disorganized in terms of. So I thank you for all of your cooperation, and I welcome all of our government representatives, especially the focal point from different ministry. So I like to start with the introduction, just name and the especially the first line that from the our government, the how many the focal point is we attended, and also our guest and participant will understand that So that's I like to request the introduce the name and designation and the ministry from our first line, and then we'll start that on UN Convention, and then here is our guest, the special guest, Mr. Atiur Rahman, that very renowned economist, and we know him very well. I mean, everybody see him. So he's the one of the special guests. Justin Lee is one of the special guests, and Mr. Jane Jest, and after that, our minister. I hope that 11:15 that about the whole conventional documents we will discuss among us about the role and responsibility, and also we'll try to understand about this convention. Our main objective is this day to inform what it is. This convention of disabled peoples that adopted by the United Nations, we just want to inform and try to understand that what it is, and that is our main purpose. And then we, on the basis of your recommendation, and then maybe we'll take the further step in future. And if there is any role of for us as like a civil society organization, as an organization of representing the disabled peoples, so then we'll take the next step in future. So I just request, I want to request from this, yeah.
Morning, sorry, I'm not from government. I'm Rabia Sultana, working for Action Aid Bangladesh.
Deputy Secretary, Cabinet Division. Good morning, I'm Shirin Akhtar, working as coordinator in National Alliance of Disabled People's Organizations. Thank you all.
Enamul Haque, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Communication. Atiur Islam, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Post and Telecommunication.
Assistant Secretary, Ministry of Primary and Mass Education and Officer in charge of Disability Desk.
Mr. Troni, আমি কাজ করছি মিনিস্ট্রি অফ ফরেন অ্যাফেয়ার্সে ইউনাইটেড নেশনস উইংয়ে অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট সেক্রেটারি হিসেবে।
Mr. Abdul Gofur, coming from Sidagong, coordinator Sidagong Disabled Development Society. Thank you.
Chaudhary, Joint Secretary, Sidagong Disabled Development Society. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Nizamul Islam, Disabled People's Organization to Development, Maulavi Bazar Deputy.
Assalamualaikum. আমি কাজী তানিয়া রহিম, আমি কাজ করছি সেন্টার ফর ডেভেলপমেন্ট সার্ভিসেস সিডিএস এর কোঅর্ডিনেটর হিসেবে।
কামরুন্নিসা মায়া, আমি সিডিএসে কাজ করতেছি ট্রেনার হিসেবে।
এসএম মিজানুর রহমান, সেন্টার কোঅর্ডিনেটর, শরণখোলা পিএসআইডি সেন্টার।
আমি জহিরুল ইসলাম, সভাপতি, লক্ষ্মীপুর দৃষ্টি প্রতিবন্ধী সংস্থা।
চেয়ারম্যান BPKS। থ্যাংক ইউ।
I am Shahidul Islam, Bogra Disabled People Organization Development, Bogra Deputy Director.
Abdus Ali, Marikon Disabled People's Organization to Development.
Director, Kuriam Disabled People Organization to Development.
Today, I am Gulam Rabbani, Center Coordinator, Persons with Disabilities Self-Initiative to Development, Nilphamari.
Director, Bangladesh প্রতিবন্ধী উন্নয়ন কেন্দ্র কুষ্টিয়া।
কান্তি দত্ত, Executive Director, PUS Nator.
Deputy Secretary, Minister of Public Works.
Coordinator, Headquarter BPKS.
Good morning, I am Lutfuna Nasrin, Center Coordinator, PSID Center Nouga.
সাইফুল ইসলাম, নির্বাহী পরিচালক, টাঙ্গাইল প্রতিবন্ধী উন্নয়ন সংস্থা।
হাজারি চেয়ারম্যান, প্রতিবন্ধী কল্যাণ সোসাইটি PKS, ঢাকা।
বাংলাদেশ।
Planning and Evaluation Division BPKS.
আমি agriculturist Abdus Sattar. Now I am working as coordinator in BPKS. My another identification, I was a government officer, means of agriculture, as the additional rank. Thank you.
Center Coordinator, PhD Center, Palapara.
Certification Board.
আমি এসটি নজরুল ইনস্টিটিউট থেকে। ধন্যবাদ।
Retired Director, Social Welfare Department.
Senior Program Officer, DipTech. ধন্যবাদ। Firdausi Begum, I am Executive Director, Development of Biotechnology Environmental Conservation Center. We are working few days we are working disability and climate change with BPKS.
আমি মোহাম্মদ সাইফুল ইসলাম, সিনিয়র সহকারী সচিব, প্রতিরক্ষা মন্ত্রণালয় ও ফোকাল পয়েন্ট প্রতিরক্ষা মন্ত্রণালয়।
Good morning to everybody. I am Jahangir Alam, Secretary General, National Alliance of Disabled People's Organizations, NADPO. NADPO is a national network of disabled people's organizations in Bangladesh.
Good morning. This is Bashiruddin Ahmed, Country Coordinator, Bangladesh Country Coordination Office, Syria.
Good morning, I'm Danielle Atkins from Caritas Australia.
I'm Laura McKnight, and I'm from USA, just visiting.
Minara, Senior Assistant Coordinator, BPKS. To ED.
I'm Dimon Zaitan, Executive Director, LPUS, Nogan.
Director, Chapanogons, DPOD, Disabled People Organization to Development. শুভেচ্ছা, আমি সাদেকুর রহমান, সংগ্রাম স্টাফ রিপোর্টার হিসেবে আছি।
Good morning, everybody. I am Arab Ali, নির্বাহী পরিচালক, MZPUS. ধন্যবাদ।
আবুল কালাম আজাদ, সেক্রেটারি জেনারেল, প্রতিবন্ধী পুনর্বাসন কল্যাণ সমিতি, PPKS, সাতক্ষীরা।
সদস্য, PPKS, সাতক্ষীরা। থ্যাংক ইউ।
আমি মোহাম্মদ আব্দুর রাজ্জাক, দৃষ্টি প্রতিবন্ধী, সুনামগঞ্জ কল্যাণ সংস্থা, সুনামগঞ্জ জেলা।
আমি ডাক্তার তাজুল ইসলাম তারেক, বাক প্রতিবন্ধী, সুনামগঞ্জ অন্নকল্যাণ সংস্থার শিক্ষা স্বাস্থ্য কর্মকর্তা।
From NADPO.
Working as a project manager in Handicap International and working for Abilis Foundation, Finland.
Program Officer of DIPD Project, Caritas Bangladesh.
West Bangla Staff Foundation Project.
Director, Northindi Deputy. Director, Noakhali Deputy.
Director, Bangladesh People's Organization to Development, Bangladesh BPKS. Thank you.
Deputy Secretary Power Division.
এরা কিভাবে কোথায় কি কাজ করছে এই ইন্ট্রোডাকশনের মাধ্যমে আমি আশা করি আপনাদের একটা ধারণা হয়েছে। আমি রাইট নাও আমি সরাসরি আমি যেটা বলবো যে আমাদের একটা ওভার হয়েছে একটা প্রেজেন্টেশন Jonathan Forhe, the Chief of his called Person with Disabilities Self-Initiative to Development, this program in other developing country, and he is also on this convention. He has some sort of knowledge about this whole convention. Last 1 year he studied about this convention. Now I request him to give the presentation on this convention.
Wonderful to see all of you here today. The first thing that I'd like to do in starting out is to mention that the convention is words on a piece of paper. And unless that we understand, they're really just words on a piece of the components, the parts of the convention and what they mean. And what they mean for people with Bangladesh, and also the role of the focal points. Another thing that I would like for you guys to keep in mind as we go through, and those recommendations need to be things that we can achieve. Because I think last year we had many wonderful recommendations, and you can find them in your books, but they were very broad recommendations. And they were not recommendations that were easy to monitor or easy to implement. So I think one of the goals coming from this seminar can be for us to look at achievable goals that we can set toward working toward the implementation of this convention. The last thing before we get into this is a lot of the convention deals with accessibility. Buildings being accessible, information being accessible to people with disabilities. And that may be information being in Braille, information being written. But I think most importantly, attitudes, and especially the focal points. That's our first step, is our attitudes have to be accessible. We cannot come to this convention with any kind of baggage or preconceptions of what it is to be a person with a disability. Because if I'm a focal point, or just a citizen of any country of the world, and I have this idea that because someone is in a wheel doing certain things, like I am capable because I have sight, then that is not having an accessible attitude. We all need to come to the table trying to work together to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity as everyone else. With that said, I'd like to get into this presentation of the PowerPoint. And where I'd like to begin is, why should you be interested? Before going into this, I would like to see a show of hands of the focal points. Like those of you who know that you are a focal point within your ministry as defined by the convention. Because one of the things when Bangladesh signed the convention, that it says, there shall be one or more focal points. We've been informed that there were 46 focal points. Does anyone in this room, are you aware that
বুঝতে পারছি ওনার কথা আশা করি বিশেষ করে যারা আমরা ফোকাল পয়েন্ট থেকে আসছি এবং আমার মনে হয় they understand. Most of them understand.
So there are no focal points. There are no focal points in this room from those ministries.
No, there is yes.
Yes, can you raise your hand if you're a focal point? I just want to get a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We addressed ourselves at the time of...
Yeah. The two audiences that we have today for this presentation, I designed this presentation for. Because it's very important. The other thing that's important is that the focal points understand what their roles are. And that's one of the complications with the convention itself. What those roles are. The convention says there must be one focal point at least or more. Because if you tell me, Jonathan, you're the focal point for the convention, and I say, okay, well, what does that mean? What do I have to do? Well, the convention is an important first step. If you don't know what your job description is, then how can you do that job effectively? So I think as we're looking at recommendations and some of the things that we need to look at solidifying, that could be something if that's what you decide your recommendation should be. So again, getting back to this, why should you be interested in this? And it's all about equality. It's having equal dignity and worth that's within each human being. Everyone is likely to experience disability at some point because of illness, accident, or aging. So right now, I may not be experiencing a disability, but as I grow older, maybe my vision becomes worse and worse and worse, and then now I have a disability that is not able to be corrected. Persons with disabilities are voters, taxpayers, and citizens like everyone else. They expect your service. Now, there are other human rights conventions that apply to people with disabilities. But because why I wanted to give you this is to show you that this process started in 2001 and all the way until March of 2007. That's when the document was finally done and ratified in November. And then in May 2008, Bangladesh ratified the optional protocol. We're also ratifying the convention. Bangladesh has ratified the country to that document. It makes it law. So there's no saying, oh yeah, well that one's good, this one's not so good, maybe we'll take that one. No, it's been ratified, so it's law. So all of the people with disabilities in this room right now have the rights as specified by the UN Convention. This is how it's organized. First, there's a preamble. Article 1 tells the purpose. 2 through 3, principles and obligations. 4 through 32 are specific state obligations. After this first session, we're going to, like any other human rights convention. This is for everyone in all of the other documents that you'll see. Here are general principles I'll just quickly highlight. Freedom to make one's own choices. Non-discrimination. Participation and inclusion, equality between men and women, respect for the evolving capacities of children with disabilities. It was formed from. The convention creates two bodies, the Conference of State Parties and then the committee. The convention, how is it going? Is there anything that we need to look at specifically? The Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, this is a committee of 12 people. What they do, they're a body of independent experts, and their duty is to review the state's implementation of the convention. So Bangladesh has to, after 2 years, Bangladesh has to submit a report. That report, they see if there were any violations, if everything is going good, and then they'll give a report. The optional protocol, Bangladesh has signed the optional protocol, is legally bound to implement this protocol. What the protocol does is it adds power. It allows them to do two things. First is, goes to them, they review it, and then they can form an investigation for the government of Bangladesh and say, okay, this looks really bad, investigate this. So this gives a person with disability complaints to this committee. Violation that is occurring over and over within the country that has signed and ratified the protocol, they have the right to come here and say, we've heard some violation. So this is not a single person or a group of people from the committee hearing, okay, we heard some bad things, so we're going to take the opportunity about signing and ratifying. And Bangladesh must not, when I say states, that means Bangladesh or any of the countries, on the basis of disability. Now this does happen worldwide, okay? Because convention which Bangladesh has signed and ratified. So we need to start moving toward a position to where we get those ramps built, to where we get teachers to understand that these children have a right to education just as much as any other children. All of this also fits with the Millennium Development Goals. I mean, there's this issue of primary education for all children. Right now, 98% of children with disabilities are not enrolled in school. So that means 2% of children with disabilities go to school. If we're going to try to reach those Millennium Development Goals, this is a huge part where we need to start working toward getting these kids into school. Prevent violations of these rights by third parties. So here we're talking about the private sector. For example, states must require private employers to provide just and favorable working conditions for persons with disabilities. This is also about accessibility. This is about coming to a building that you should not have to take a wheelchair and drag it up a whole flight of steps to get to a service that everyone else can get to if they are not physically disabled. So that's what the obligation to protect is about. Obligation to fulfill. State parties must take appropriate legislative of these rights. There are several different articles. I've chosen two to kind of give you an example of the right to education. What does it mean to respect that right? School authorities must not exclude wheelchair. Sorry, you can't go to school. No, it's not feasible. It's not applicable at all under the convention. Protect. The state must ensure that private schools do not discriminate against a person with a disability in their education programs. Because remember, when we talk about protect, we're talking about third parties. We're talking about all, including persons with disabilities. Here is the right to work. What does it mean to respect the right to work? The state must respect the rights of persons with disabilities to form trade unions if they so choose. Protect. The state must ensure that the private sector respects the right to work of persons with disabilities. Fulfilling that right, the state must provide vocational training with available resources to persons with disabilities. These actions to be taken by state parties are suggested actions through the UN Convention. So here are some things that the Bangladesh government could do toward the implementation of the convention. Protect and promote the rights of persons with disabilities in all policies and programs. Ensure the public and private sectors respect the rights of persons with disabilities. Promote and consult with and involve persons with disabilities in developing and implementing legislation and policies and in decision-making processes that concern them. What I want to talk about a little bit is this last section. For so long now, a lot of the issues of persons with disabilities have been issues of welfare, have been issues of charity. Through this convention, the issues of persons with disabilities now become issues of human rights. And so there's this huge shift into not having medical or just professionals in general saying, this is what's best for people with disabilities. This is what we think you should be doing. Now, this puts the power in the hands of the people with disabilities. And this allows them to have choices and say, no, that's not what I want for me. This is my right. This is what I want to do with my life. This is the option that I want to take. So it's very important that, in saying that, people with disabilities are included in everything, in all of the legislation. I know now that there's a committee, the coordination committee within the government. What this is saying is, make sure there are lots of people with disabilities within that committee. Because if you're going to have an action plan, or if you're going to have legislation that is about people with disabilities, then it should include them in saying what that legislation needs to be about. A friend of mine, Bill Winkley, who I know a lot of people at BPKS know, uses this one example that I think is very clear and very good. He says, we're going to form a women's organization for gender rights. I am going to be the president of that organization. Satora is going to be the vice president of that organization, and we're going to ask Justin to be the treasurer. Of the women in the room, who would want to be a part of that organization? You know, if this organization is led by men, what do we understand about the frustrations that women face in their daily lives of rights? So that people with disabilities would be involved in the legislation that governs their lives. The same way that it makes no sense for the three of us men to be leading an organization about the rights of women. Here we begin talking about focal points, which is huge for the implementation of this convention. The focal points through this convention have a huge responsibility, and it's important that all of responsibility. State parties must appoint one of the convention. With what we have going on here, we have 46, as I understand it, 46 focal points. I understand as well that we're not certain who all those focal points are, and we're in the process of trying to get all of those people on one list so that we know who to contact. Hopefully that's going to take place soon. That may also be a recommendation for the end of this seminar, is to figure out who all of these people are. The focal point should be of the convention. It should administrative or other legal measures be permanently appointed and be located at the high in this book. And I also at the end of where you can go to download this entire book. And the title of this book is